All right. I was watching the History Channel Grant documentary, and of course, was inspired to play this game. I think it's a phenomenal sort of strategy game for the Civil War, and it kind of gets my itch every once in a while. And it's also going to act as a guide to try and get my cousin to figure out how to play this game. So we're going to select campaign, and I'm designing my character here while Lincoln talks over me. I'm designing my guy to be a Union general, so what I'm going to focus on is training here with the infantry, strategist infantry, and then I'm going to go into politics here as well, and then Union. And I'm just going to do Brigadier General straight down the middle, but if you want to do Colonel, in fact, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to do Colonel just to choose. So, basically, here's an explanation of what all of these do real quickly. So, what politics does for you is once you get out of the initial battle with the Union, politics allows you to gain either special generals, extra men, more money, or you might get certain weapons. I use politics mostly for extra men because manpower is a big thing. However, with the Union, because they tend to have more manpower, I tend to use it more for money, so I can actually pay to recruit more of those men. So it deals with your money and with the amount of men that you can get, or basically there's like political points and stuff. When it comes to the economy, that deals with, money. Medicine is really nice to have later on. This one I would focus on more so for the Confederates, but it is also useful for the Union. Basically, what medicine is it's medicine. So your any troops that are when you're in battle that you lose, like your units number goes down, some of them will be recovered through wounding, and so this is good for saving your veteran troops and making sure that you don't lose as many men. Again, manpower is a kind of big key thing here, because without manpower you can't really fight. Training is great. I like training for the Union because their troops don't get as much veterancy, and so veterancy really helps just in general, and it also makes, I believe, training a little bit cheaper. And so this veteran cost is down by 10% already because I've put strategist and infantry. Army organization just allows you to have a bigger army. I think in my biggest Union I had it up to 8. You can get ridiculous, but again, you can get more brigades, you can get more divisions if you want, you can make them bigger, you can have bigger brigades if you want, but you still need the manpower, which is why this one's not as important. Logistics deals with ammunition and how much ammo your guys carry, and then reconnaissance. I only ever get reconnaissance up to level 4, and I'll explain that in a bit. So let me name my guy, and I think we'll just go. Let's go. We were talking about Grant earlier, so I'm gonna go Hug. Grant. Alright. So, the problem with this game is that it kind of tosses you in the deep end here, no matter which scenario you play for the either the Union or the Confederates. It really doesn't make it easy on you when it comes to learning how to play this game. So the objective for the Union is to take this town here and to secure it, and they give you a real bore of a mission. Like these 2 bridges are going to be a pain in the butt. So they tell you there's going to be a train which will come in later, and they give you these. This is your vanguard to sort of do it. So immediately I know, because I've played this game before, there are skirmishers up here and around here. So I'm going to stop my guys, and I'm just going to send them up here to clear out this. Now, this is, of course, gaming a little bit, but, you know, it is what it is. You want to get through this because this doesn't really have too much to do with your starting troops. I believe keeping your starting units alive here gives you more at the beginning, but it's honestly not too much of an issue. So as you can see, there's skirmishers up here, and they can wreak havoc on you if they're in a really good position. And if you're in an open road, then it's good, or then they're pretty good. So I'm sending these skirmishers up, and I'm going to give them an attack order by just right-clicking on them. My skirmishers should be able to deal with them, but if you really want to push something, you're going to send an infantry brigade here. I suppose it's a good time to talk about open areas. So while roads and plains and fields are good for speed, you can move faster over them. They're terrible for cover and stealth, so damage you saw was 100%. In forests, the adage here I will say is forests are friends. Forests are going to be where you get most of your cover here. So you'll see that my brigade here has 66% cover. They're in the forest. This just basically saves your men from bullets, and again, manpower is key. What's useful here is my skirmishers, while they're moving forward, they are flanking these guys, so these Confederates aren't in a great position, and I'll talk about flanking, I'm sure, at another point here. I just want to clear these guys out, and I'm going to send my skirmishers forward. Yes, I remember. There is still one unit, so in fact I'm going to turn one of my skirmishers back. I would like to destroy these units, but it's really hard to destroy units without completely surrounding them. Here you can see an eyeball. Obviously that'll give you a sight line. Generals work just like they do in Rome Total War with their sphere of influence. They give you morale boosts, so you can see the arrow because this brigade is there, or in the sphere of hug here. And really, morale is your other big thing. Besides manpower, morale is what really helps you to survive. Alright, so I get some extra reinforcements to head to the town, including a cavalry brigade here. With this cavalry brigade, I'm going to try and attack some of these skirmishers and clean them up. The reason why I'm cleaning up all these skirmishers is just because I know that they're going to show up over here later, and I want as few enemies as possible to interact with and deal with. So I'm going to hopefully be able to get this cavalry unit to charge in. You can see this unit lost a decent amount of men there. Routing units are more vulnerable to fire, and that is why you want to monitor your morale as much as possible and make sure that it does not fall. A little trick I do, supply wagons you can turn off whether or not they're going to supply your men. Artillery chew up supply a lot, and you want to make sure that you're using your artillery correctly before you start sort of just letting your supply die from that. So that's phase one of this battle. Phase 2 is clearing this side of the bank. So Phase 2 requires you to attack this town. Now, the other thing that gives you decent cover are towns. And you can see that there's this little border around here, which means that they are entrenched in a little thing, or at least in cover. And with cover, you really don't want to attack them head on. Sometimes you can't really be helped, and sometimes you need a unit to sort of pin them down and draw their focus. But as I said, flanking is a major part of this game. Flanking is what allows you to do a lot of casualties, and ultimately it's what allows you to break the morale of your enemies. And that's kind of the goal of this game, is to break the morale of your enemy brigades so that they rout and more casualties are done, which makes them more susceptible to morale hits in the future. So what I'm doing here is I'm going to push my skirmishers around to the side. I don't want them straight into the fight. These guys, these are dedicated skirmishers, but skirmishers as a whole are not good for taking a fire head on, and so I've made a slight mistake there by letting them get shot at. But I'm going to push my other brigades here over, and I'm also going to push my artillery up as close as I can without crossing my front line here. My cavalry for now I'm going to leave out here just in case somebody comes over and tries to flank. And I'm going to actually pause it here. So here's the thing with artillery. You can use this little info icon to help tell you what they are. And basically these are 6-pounder smoothbores, so they're really small, which really just means that you want these guns as close as possible. And really the rule of thumb with guns is you want basically them to be supporting your line as closely as you can, because there are types of shells that they fire, and the closer they are, the more damage they're going to do. Some guns, like 12-pounder Napoleons, can be a little bit farther back and do the same sort of damage that we're talking about, but for 6-pounders, you're going to want them right up close. So if you can kind of imagine games like Empire Total War or any other game that has Sid Meier's Pirates, really, where grape shot has a very short range compared to round shot. This is essentially the principle applied to guns here. You have round shot, but it doesn't really do that much damage to infantry. You want your grape shot and sort of your exploding shells when fighting. So that's why I'm wanting to bring them up as close as possible. Cornfields are decent cover. They're not great cover, but they're decent cover. Now that this McHenry brigade is focused on Zook, again, I'm going to try and surround him, and again, I've sent them routing. So while these fortifications are alright, I would say not all fortifications are created equal, in that some suck, and especially when you just have one fortification here with one brigade. He's kind of SOL, because I surrounded the town and shot him from multiple directions, which means that his morale, because he's being flanked a bunch, it goes down. If I were to defend this town, I certainly wouldn't do it with one brigade, but if I were to, I would not even bother with the fortification. I would just use these buildings, because as you can see, cover is 200%. So I would just put them in this building and try and really just fight a delaying action moving back. So right now my goal is to hopefully cut off these guys from escape and send them away towards my cavalry, I don't want them across the bridge, because this mission, really you're just trying to make it easier on your life by preventing them from crossing. I'm going to move my supply and my general up, and I may not get what I want from this. So at this point, I think what I'm going to do is the sort of, I guess, cheese tactic. So you can see my cannon are firing round shots, so they're a little bit too far off. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just keep moving them forward, because now we're going to want to move them to a point where they're going to fire at this unit up here. I'm going to keep Bristow over here, and then I'm going to move these brigades off this way. So there you see McHenry moving back. In fact, I might just put my cavalry on them, and I'm going to move my skirmishers up over here. So with this mission, you do have 4 hours here, and time, it's not 4 real hours, obviously, but that is a decent amount of time to advance across and to secure this town. And you're really going to want to do it cautiously in this. You don't have a lot of spare men. If this brigade here, or if these brigades were like 2,000 strong, then you could toss them pretty easily into this. But as I said, not all fortifications are created equal. While this fortification in the town sucked, fortifications like this, where there's one point of attack, are really, really tough to break through. And then on top of that, you have a bridge, which gives you 1% cover. Attacking across a bridge sucks a lot. So the plan here is I'm going to advance, and I really want to get my guys into this forest here. And I want as many brigades firing as possible. I also want my guns to fire on them. At this point, with cavalry, cavalry do not attack entrenched positions. Cavalry are your scouting force, so they can go and go to like a lookout point and hold it, and they're useful for that. The other role they play well is flanking. And again, with flanking, you really destroy the morale of troops. So that's typically how I use my cavalry. You can see this is a rifle cavalry. Melee cavalry just don't have the rifle through the horse, and melee cavalry, I think, are even worse at what they do. But there is a place for them, depending on your design of the sort of army. So let's just keep advancing. I want to get my guys into that forest, like I said. Try and make it hard to basically find, like, to pause so I can focus. You want to make it hard for the brigade to focus, or to, you know, you want them turning, basically, or you want them to be flanked. So right here I have a pretty decent flanking position. I could move them even more so to like this area to try and flank this unit. So this unit basically pins, while this unit will fire into the flanks, and that should really erode the morale of this McHenry brigade. Zook here is just going to sort of provide some extra oomph on the front, and at this point I'm also going to move my units this way, or my skirmishers here. I think what I'm going to end up doing is pull my cavalry back and then have my skirmishers kind of try and pot shot across the river. So at this point, I'm going to hit hold. I don't want my guys advancing too much further. But you can see now that the McHenry is routing and it's on a bridge, so you can really do a lot of damage to units like that. I also have put my guys in hold here. This helps your morale. So units that say hold are going to basically they're going to feel like it's moderately better at taking bullets to the face. However, this means that they'll stay exactly as they are. If you unclick this, let's say a brigade came from over here, the unit would turn to go get you, like these guys just did. So that means that they'll put their front towards their foe. At this point, the goal is to put as much fire into route here as I can, because this fortification is tough to break through, because again, it's across a river and it's also you know, a heavier fortification. So the best way to do this is with cannon fire, with guys trying to flank. If I had an extra bridge here to send across to send fire into them, I would, but I don't. So ultimately, it's just putting as many bullets this way as possible, and as many cannon shells as possible that way as well. Now with Hug and Generals, you can also put them to hold. I don't know if it provides an increased morale, but it certainly makes me feel better. But it also keeps these guys from running off. So as you can see, with 3 brigades firing on 1 unit, not only does it spread fire out, it also means that they're firing, or that a lot of people are firing. Now I've routed them, and I'm going to let them fire, and then I'm going to send Loomis across right now. And it's at this point that I'll talk about the run mechanic. So condition is your stamina, basically, for units. You can recover this if you get a unit to stay, but you're going to want to conserve this, because as your condition goes lower, if it gets down pretty low, your guys will be tired, and I believe their reload skill is affected from it. So you want to choose the places in which you run very carefully. So in this instance, I want to get across this bridge as fast as possible. So I'm going to tell my guys to run. You can hit R if you want to. And I want them across the river and quick. As you can see, Hexamer was one of those skirmishers that we fought down back this way. So we are kind of, ruining that chance. I'm going to move my artillery again as close as I can, because they do more damage closer. And at this point, I want to basically form a little beachhead with my brigades. I'm going to tell them to stop running now that they're across. And I could tell Zook, and then I'm going to tell my skirmishers to get across as well. And you can kind of see the artillery there. There was more of a sort of like a shotgun shell spread. That's the distance you want. This map is a little bit more zoomed in than you'll find in the main campaign. So you'll just have to basically adjust until you see your artillery putting in those kinds of shells. Now, Hexamer here is on 61 guys. You can get units to completely disappear from the battlefield if you get them low enough. And depending on their kind of unit, it just depends on, it depends how many left that they have. So with skirmishers, I would say Roughly around 30 is when they tend to completely break. But if they're in a good position and they're really experienced, then it will take them a little bit longer. Now that they've routed, so you can see the exhausted over there. So Zook here is exhausted, which means not only do they move slower, I believe their reload skill is slower too. So having exhausted troops really means, and there we go. So we broke a unit, which is always nice to have. So what I'm going to do now is move my guys across, and I'm going to move these now that this law unit has come across. And I can't, unfortunately, take the sort of and use the fortifications to my use, but I can at least here. And so see, this is kind of an annoying situation because they were flanked. Loomis will turn. I'm going to tell these guys to halt and hopefully put some fire into McHenry. We could see Root has moved over here. And what I'm going to do now is actually tell my guys to halt. And you can see that they're turning. There's a little bit of a glitch in the game, like they will engage the closest person. But I want them to halt and actually focus this way. But I have secured the town. And it's at this point that I would say there's an important sort of distinction. With games like Rome Total War or, the Total War series, you want to basically completely destroy the enemy army. With this, there's a little bit more realism in that you don't get to destroy armies as much as you might want to. And securing objectives is going to be your primary thing, and in fact, conserving your troops rather than sending them off to just die pointlessly in the name of video games is not going to help you as much. So right now, I think all I need to do is hold Philippi, and then sort of the next stage of this battle will happen. So I'm going to... There you can see that this infantry unit has completely broken, which is really nice for us, which means we can move the other brigade over. Stockton is... you don't really want your skirmishers fighting brigades like infantry brigades as much unless they're in a good position and unless they have a sort of superior firearm. These guys have a sharp carbine, which is okay, but if they had a different weapon like a repeating rifle or something, that would work better. So I'm going to send Zook over to try and assist. My cannon here are pretty well adjusted, and what I'm going to do now is I'm going to turn on my supply just to resupply everybody now that they're all close. And if I want to, what I can do, cavalry are good for flanking, and they're also good for taking out artillery when they're isolated. So, like in this situation, I'll be able to put in a good shot, and now they've turned on me. And so while my guys are reloading, you can send these guys in to charge. However, charges are much better when the enemy has routed. you might lose some dudes here, but if you get rid of the artillery, that really helps get rid of your sort of guns shooting at you. So you can see I broke that, and that's really nice. And what I'm going to do now is I'm not going to push my infantry forward anymore. I'm just going to have them hold. Because now, okay, we have this counterattack. So this is the pain in the ass part of the situation. Because the Confederates get a train that rolls through right in front of you, and you have to hold this town. As I said, not all fortifications are created equal. So there's no fortifications whatsoever here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull my troops back. I'm going to put this skirmisher unit out here. And actually, yeah, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull my guns back and pull everybody back to a tighter ring. That will just help me initially. I'm going to pull my supply back. In this mission, I don't think it's too bad. And generally, actually, what I'm going to do is, because that the only thing that can really damage that train are cannon, I'm going to move my cannon over here. I'm also going to use this skirmisher unit to act as a reinforcing unit. And then this cavalry unit is going to be my QRF, so my quick response force. They're going to hold wherever I need them to be. So I'm going to hit Loomis. He's at 100% cover with buildings. I'm going to just put him there and park. Zook, I'm actually going to fold in a little bit closer. And then I'm going to have him basically just rest to try and gain that condition. You'll see, if you sit here and wait long enough, you'll see that as they are just kind of chilling, your condition will go up. And I want, basically, Schaefer here is going to reinforce Walton, and you'll see why in a minute. And then I'm also going to move Hug over here to give the boost. So the know-how on this scenario is the rebels come from basically this direction, and this direction. And they come and try and attack you here. The hardest place to defend is right here, because eventually the train will come from up this route and park right in front of you. So that's why I've moved my guns closer. These guns will also help because they're very close in range, and actually I'm going to pull them back a little bit. However, you are going to get reinforcements coming from this road right here. That's where we're going to use that run function, because we're just going to, once these guys show up, we're just going to run them into the town as quick as possible and try and help. So I'm going to have Zook there, and I'm going to have Stockton here to kind of create a crossfire. And again, I've got my QRF. I'm actually going to let Loomis off this hold, because he'll be able to turn left and right. So if Wheeler comes here, Loomis will turn and be able to support Zook. And you'll see here that cover is pretty good, because it protects your troops, but it also gives your men a very good reload bonus. So now, here we go. So the rebels are coming in. I'm going to wait just a second, because sometimes you get a glitch where your troops don't come in. But I'm going to just send my guys running for the town. Unfortunately, you cannot run artillery, and cavalry already is at a run. And my guys should be okay while I'm doing this. It takes a little bit of time for things to develop. But as you can see, the armored train is already on its way, and I'm going to move my guns there. Now, like I said, the fortification gives you a reload bonus, which is really nice. It gives you cover as well. These guys here, you'll find that the enemy likes to charge, bayonet charge your positions. That is one way to get a lot of your men killed, but it can clear a position. But if you have a supporting unit, like here, then it will also keep, they'll be able to put fire in as well. But I've put these guys here because I knew that this unit will come and try and flank, and so I'm going to have them fire into there, which means I'm going to put my QRF this way, and in fact I'm going to move Loomis up to support as well. Loomis is all full condition, so I have no problem getting them to run. And as you can see, they've charged 3 brigades into 1. You do get a melee bonus defense here, so Walton's going to do okay. But I do want my guys to sort of help out here and really just put as much fire in as possible. And so you see that they've routed. My guys have, so I'm going to actually run Loomis in to plug the gap, as it were. Again, my troops are close in. So my QRF is going to need to come in as well. And I'm going to move these skirmishers over along with this. Now Walton will come back. And you can see that because I had these guys here shooting into the flank of this unit, they lost 100 guys real quick. Walton is coming back, so I'm going to put them, actually I'm going to move them over here as a reinforcing unit. Now that my troops have reached the town, I'm taking them off run. And I'm going to have my cannon switch fire over to the train. So now we can relax a little bit more, because the amount of brigades that you have should be enough to cover all your flanks. Once you start focusing your cannons on the train itself, you can see that they're pretty close, so the number of men here is going to go down pretty quickly. But again, I'm not too worried. The Confederates haven't pushed me too hard, or they've kind of focused their attack here, and they've lost a lot of men in their assault. So there we go. The train is pulling back. So you can see these guns being here are really helpful for basically pushing back the enemy, and I'm going to change fire to get this Revere out of here and off Walton's flank. You can see these two units. Sometimes your skirmisher and cavalry units you're going to want to keep track of because they run off because they're skirmishers more. You can see Revere's run away. And there we go. So we didn't even need the extra cannon to hold Philippi. And in fact, this hour 30 is going to go by real slow if I do it at normal speed. And given that I have men in place, I didn't want to do that. But given that I have men in place here, and you can see that they do have brigades out there, but they're weaker than mine, which is never... you never really want to attack. So because my men... Milroy here is actually trained with this 1 star, and these guys are untrained. So them assaulting this position would be basically suicide. What I'm going to do is I'm going to speed up time to 3 times, because I know that through experience and through knowing that basically the Confederates won't attack, they AI is decently smart and will not attack a strong position if they know that they're going to lose. The exceptions to this are battles where it's expected of the AI to attack. And so there you have, pretty much we've won. I could even pull back Walton here if I needed to. But you can see that Perrin here is just probably going to stay outside of cannon range and outside of rifle range. And it's at this point that it becomes sort of just a cannon fest, shooting small numbers here. And if I wanted to, I could assault using my superior numbers to try and basically push these guys away. But again, I don't really need to. So I'm just going to keep my guys here and, just kind of wait out this time period. Let's see if I can't talk about things. Sure. So you'll find with this game that these supply depots are useful because they're infinite. I really wish that they would refill, like this supply depot could be used to refill these supply wagons. They don't, which annoys me a lot. But alas, it is what it is. Supply is useful. I typically keep my supply canceled out like this until a unit is basically exhausted with their ammunition. You can see it with this white here. And the reason I do that is because there isn't a... Hold on here. We have some brave souls trying to assault. So you can see Perrin's been basically shot up by artillery. That cannon unit got destroyed. And you can see that these guys are going to get shot up pretty darn good by Bruce and by these two cannons. Or cannon, I guess, if you want to be grammatically correct. And they've routed, which means they're more susceptible to fire. So that unit was 400, and now it's down to 150. Again, I've got Milroy here, but he's supported by Zook. So the second they engage in fire, then Zook is going to be able to shoot them. Loomis is able to turn and kind of send these guys away. And again, we got 6 minutes until the end of the mission here. And at that point, we'll be fine. Oh, look at that. So, the Confederates, I believe, get a melee bonus. Whereas, and they get veterans bonus, so they're faster to veteran status than the Union. The Union just get a lot more men, but they also get better equipment. And I would say that for learning how to play this game, the Union is going to be an easier path to play because it requires less in terms of the sort of macro management that you'll see in just a second here. So we're going to hit finish, and you can see sort of the disparity. So the Confederates here on the right, they took 2,700 casualties to our 1,000, which is a good ratio, 2 to 1 over that. And we had a similar disposition in terms of numbers. You could see that you do get goods on the battlefield. So we captured 88 Springfield 1855s. These are better versions of these 1842s, but that really doesn't matter too much right now. All right. So politics will help you get money and men on this screen, these two numbers. Career points help upgrade your character, I guess, so Hug can get a bonus here. Reputation goes up here, and let me just click on that. Reputation, what Reputation does is it allows you to buy extra things. So if I wanted to get good old John Gibbon here, I could. If I wanted to get 2,000 of these Palmetto 1842 rifles, I could to outfit. And so you can see that Loomis and Walton are my two brigades that I got here, and the 2 artillery. So it is nice to save those units because you do get them. Let's start with career here. So career points, you get 1 after every victory. I think maybe you might get 2 after big battles. I think what I'm going to do right now... I don't have enough men, really, in army organization. So what I might do right now is I might put reconnaissance in. I want to get my reconnaissance skill up to 4. You'll see why. Well, I can explain why in just a little bit, but let's go here. So here is your basic army build screen, and this is really where I want my cousin to get to, and I'm going to end the video once I kind of explain this. From here you can see you can either train rookie men here, or you can use veterans. Veterans cost money to train. Rookies only cost manpower, and you basically give them rifles like Russians and say, here you go. But of course that means that your unit loses veteran status and it loses any of this skill. Because I have the money, I'm going to do this because I think Loomis and Walton, your starting units, are going to be helpful. I also had enough rifles. Now you can see down here in the armory, I have 115 of these rifles left. If I have those rifles, then it's pretty cheap. You just have to pay for training. But once you get above that, it really starts getting super expensive because you have to purchase these rifles themselves. So what I could do is try and find another version or another rifle that might have a lot. But as you can see, the only other rifle I have is the Springfield 1855, and even them, they are more expensive than the Springfield 1842. So what I'm going to end up doing is I'm just going to push these guys down, and because I'm OCD as heck, I like sort of the 1,000 number. You can see that rookie status means that you're really just paying for the rifles, which is cheaper, and I'm actually going to just pay for the rifles and keep Walton as is. Excuse my voice crack. When it comes to guns, guns are, again, I typically just keep guns, and any guns that I have, they're much more expensive than rifles, so you can obviously see that. So if I wanted to try and switch over to 12-pounder Napoleons, I could, but again, they're going to be decently expensive. And really for now, what I'm going to do is I have 2 spare artillery pieces here, so I'm just going to put this unit up to 6, and this unit up to 6, and I'm going to do veterans just because I like to keep my artillery kind of up to date. Now what I can do is I can create another division here. This is where army organization comes in, so if I wanted to get, you can have a max of 6 brigades in a division, but it takes a lot of army organization to get to that point. Army organization also allows you to increase this maximum number of soldiers in your infantry and cavalry units. But I'm going to create another division anyway, and then I'm going to create more infantry. When you're building your armies, you're going to want mostly infantry. I'm just going to bump these guys up to 1,500 as is, and you can see I'm poor now. I also am poor in terms of men, so if anything, I would probably want to create either a cavalry brigade or a skirmisher, and I'm going to go with skirmisher. And you can see the only thing I have are the Sharps models, and because I have those guns, all I have to do is pay for the creation cost, which the creation cost is just this officer here. And I can bump these guys up to 185 if I want. If I go over, I don't have the men, and so I'm going to do that, and there we're done. Here, if you want extra money, you can sell those rifles. Because I only have 88 of these, I might, but I really don't need the money now. It really depends. This rifle is a better version of this. It's a better shooting version, but it has less melee. You can kind of see that. If you want a more advanced thing, I can go into that, but I think I'll talk about that later. And you can go and see all the different, cavalry. The sword is the melee cav, and then the rifle is the rifle cav, and so on and so forth. The barracks, this is where you've got men, or your officers for your brigades. They do help. So, for example, Loomis here is a major. You get certain buffs, like a major can control a decent amount of troops, but if I were to upgrade to like a brigadier general here, then he could control maybe like 2,500 or 3,000 men without suffering any penalty. However, Loomis here has this experience bar, so as time will as you fight in battles, he will increase in rank, and so naturally he will do fine and increase the unit stats, and that will get you your veterancy and all that stuff. I guess the last thing to do is the sort of campaign screen. So this report, I never really understand the purpose of this. This is, I feel like just to immerse you, mostly because I've destroyed armies before in the campaign, like literally destroyed to where they have no men left on the battlefield, and they come back with full armies. Obviously, that would be a game-breaking mechanic, but what you're going to want to do is, I typically play all of these battles, and this battle is going to be very helpful because I'm going to click on it in just a sec. You don't actually use any of your army here. They give you basically free units to use, and this is really when the tutorial of the game starts. If you win, you get money and men. If you draw and defeat, you get less so you really want to push for victories or draws. Sometimes draws will get you positive reputation. You don't want this reputation to go too low, because I believe you lose the game if it goes too low. And also, if you lose too much, you don't have enough to replenish your armies, and so you might end up going into a large battle and have like not enough men to win at all. So, like I said, the last thing here. Maybe you do have to use your own troops. At the very least, you get these troops, and then they give you, let's see, right click. You can see here that they give you 1,982 men already, so they give you 2 infantry brigades and 2 skirmishers and a cavalry unit to kind of bolster your troops. Here's where the recon skill comes in. So if I had a higher reconnaissance level, I'd have a better brigade, or I would know how many enemy brigades are coming at me, enemy divisions and corps. If I get super high, you can even look at what rifles, like what their experience are, how many men are in each brigade. I've never found that to be too terribly useful. Really, the most useful part is up here. So right now, enemy army information is blank and gray. But once you get it up to 4, your reconnaissance skill, what'll happen is you'll be able to tell how many men are on the battlefield for your troops and for their troops. And it will give you like a casualty count, basically, or like 1,800 out of 2,100, for example, for infantry. And so this is really good if you are playing through this game and want to know, like, hey, I'm waiting around, and then all of a sudden the bar will go from maybe all blue to all red because a massive Confederate force just spawned in, basically. So it kind of gives you an idea of, like, when do you want to push, and when do you want to hang back and just set up defensive positions. So with that, I'm going to leave it here. If I manage to get my cousin to play this game and advance, and he asks for maybe more advice or more in terms of a guide, then I will do so. But for now, hopefully this has been useful. Hopefully this has kind of given you a basic understanding of the game. And certainly we haven't even touched the surface of combat here. We've been a few units. So I'm going to end it there because I tend to ramble on. So take care. Hope you enjoyed.